Hello, I'm Lori Alvarez, and I welcome you to Real Estate with Soul, the podcast. This is where I will share my story, knowledge, wisdom, and the legacy in real estate, and my family, all boldly wrapped up in one with you. So let's get started. Hey, it's Lori Alvarez, and guess who's here with me? We've got
Amy Cruz.
Of course, my beautiful sister and buyer's agent. And of course, we have an awesome guest today, one of our most amazing clients.
So amazing.
He is. And he found us, aligned with us, because he called me on one of my properties years ago on Mauna Loa in Glendora.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted,
Yeah,
it was a long time ago, and he wanted to buy that house. And ever since then, we've been working together. And I just love Mr. Arthur Garcia. You are awesome because you just love to buy and hold real estate. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So tell everyone a little bit of who you are, where you are in your life right now.
Well, good to be with both of you. So thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, I'll just do a quick synopsis. So I've been working in corporate America for the better part of about 18 years now. So becoming an older man before your eyes here. I had hair when I first met you. Now that's gone.
That's true.
So been working. That's true. So I've been working in corporate America for about 18 years. And, as I got out of college, started to think about ways that I could start to build a financial future for my family that was a little more stable than being as a corporate sales representative, and you can appreciate this, Lori and Amy, you guys are in sales. You're never, I guess you're overly aware of the fact that you're very replaceable
Right.
in sales. And so that built a sense of urgency around looking for alternative investment vehicles that could, eventually offset my day-to-day income. And so, for the better part of about 12 years, we've been purchasing buy and hold rental real estate. About 5 years ago, we were able to cross a milestone of having enough investment property to cover our core living expenses. And, every year after that, we've been trying to eventually build a bridge that we could cross at some point. So there we are.
I love it that here's the reality of it. You can be replaced, right? I mean, in real estate for us specifically, someone can decide, well, I just don't want to work with you. See ya. And we put a lot of time and energy into them and they don't buy anything with us and we don't get paid. And that's kind of, anyone can have that experience with any type of day-to-day job. It's just the realities of life. So I love that you were willing to double down and say, how do I do this differently? How can I do this while still doing the everyday job? Because that's the thing, is you didn't even step out of that everyday job. You still stuck with it. So, tell us a little bit more about why you chose real estate to be the supplement to your income.
No, it's a great question. Yeah, and I guess the journey starts back when I was in college. I was very fortunate, coming from a blue collar family where I got some opportunities to go to a private liberal arts college. And one of the years that I was there, I actually lived with a roommate who had a very wealthy background. Like his family owned, I think, 30 to 50 rental properties.
Wow.
If you were a kid, yeah, I know, right? If you were a kid born in this guy's family, you owned 5 properties minimum. Like every kid in that family, there's about 3 of them. They all own multiple properties, and it was part of their family culture.
Yes.
And so that year in college was really beneficial to me because I got to see up front, the way that he thought about money, the way that they thought about assets and liabilities. Of course, I didn't think about things in that term back then, but just kind of watching how he handled money and how he was thinking about investments, very different. My family was, very much whatever you make, you spend. If you did own a property, which was very rare, that could be, you can pull equity out of that and buy yourself a house or not a house. You could buy yourself some toys or a new car. Yeah. And so very, very different approach to money. And so that kind of planted the seed. Read a book, and I recommend this to anybody. It's a very simple read. You probably have recommended this yourself, Lori and Amy, to your clients, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad
fantastic.
Was very, very simplistic way. There's a lot of debate on if he actually did have, real father and like a rich dad and an actual poor dad. But the story and the fable of kind of how those two personalities thought about money was pretty critical. And so as I got into corporate America and had a day job, I looked at, what are the ways that we could actually start to have a side hustle. And, if you're in this country, you pretty much have three paths to being really wealthy, right? So one is, you have a last name that is associated with a lot of money and wealth, and you're just kind of lucked out and got born in the right family. And so I told you about my background. So we checked the box. That didn't happen for me. The other option, the other option there is you can start a business, right? You think of all the great entrepreneurs in this country. But if I look at my skill set, like I not really good when it comes to attention to detail. They work a lot. I mean, I look at what you and Amy do. I mean, you guys work so hard for your clients. I admire that. That's why I've used you for all of our transactions here. But I also like, man, I don't envy the schedule you guys have, right? Because you're always working for your customers.
That's why it takes two of us.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So there's the path of entrepreneurship, right? And then the third path, which is the one that I kind of most aligned to, was rental real estate, right? If you could acquire a property that cash flows and you can just hold it, the value of that asset over time will start to go up with inflation, also just market pressures as we're seeing now. The mortgage will get paid down. It's obviously very heavily tax favored. And when you think about inflation, it's a great hedge for that as well. So it was kind of a multi-pronged approach. And, for the amount of time that I spent in my business for this piece, I would probably say, and I'm not being overly boastful here, probably less than 10 minutes to 30 minutes a month to actually manage the nitty gritty of the actual business once the properties are rented.
Yeah, I love that. So let me ask you then, because you chose real estate, you're like, okay, I'm going to move forward in real estate. So like next steps, did you purposely say, oh, I want to buy in this neighborhood, or I want to buy in this type of house? Or did you just like buy a house that the numbers made sense? I mean, how did you make that first decision to buy that first house for the person who hasn't done that yet? What moved you forward to be able to pull the trigger?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, right? I get that a lot. Once in a while, folks will reach out to me and say, hey, how do I get started? So I'll do two things here. I'll share the quick story on my part. And then maybe if I was a newbie today thinking about how I could take advantage of today's great rates, working with a great team like yourself, and how I would get engaged. I would say that for me, it just so happened that I had saved up a little bit of money back in like 2009. I think I had like 40 grand or 50 grand saved up. And a family friend was going through a financial crisis where they were overextended on their property and they had to basically do a short sale. And so at the time, I just, through a family friend, they said they were going to get rid of it. And I was interested in real estate. I was super freaked out. I was able to work with that seller and through the agent that we had at the time. I call this, pre-Lori.
Yes.
Before I knew
okay. We know you have the previous business.
That was because I wasn't enlightened yet. That's all that was, right? So we were able to get the property under contract, and I guess it started out as like I was super freaked out. I rehabbed the property with my dad and myself. I rented it out. I interviewed all the tenants, and this thing was like an hour away. I was out in Fontana, and I was so freaked out, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then the weirdest thing happened. A month into it, I got a tenant in there. 2 months passed, I got my rent check. 3 months, 4 months, I got my rent check. And I was like, wait a minute, this is it? And we bought it in a way where the mortgage was only like $600 and we rented it out for like $1,100. I was like, so I guess I get to keep this and just put it back in my bank account. And so like after about 6 months, I said, hey, I think we might be able to do more of this. And so that's how
so awesome.
That's how I got started. It was actually like a little bit fortuitous. I think I just was kind of interested in it, but I was also like, well, I put my capital on the line. I was a little bit nervous. I think I was like 28. So I was a little nervous about being so young, having like a little bit of a debt on me.
Yeah. So let's clarify then. Did you currently own your own home already? Had you already bought a house yourself that you were living in, or were you renting when you bought this first property?
No, it's a good point. Actually, I had actually purchased my first home. So I was living in Santa Clarita at the time, and I had a little bit of discretionary cash left over, right, that I'd saved up. So we bought this house, and then I said about 6 months after that, it was around 2009. So everything the sky was falling.
Yeah.
And I told my girlfriend, which is now my wife, hey, I tend to be a fairly passionate
Yes.
person. So I said, look, I think this is an opportunity for us to really make some strides for our future.
Yeah.
So I sold our house in Santa Clarita, got the equity out of that. I pulled money out of my 401k. I partnered with some folks that wanted to invest their money, and we dumped everything we could. I like went down to a 1 bedroom apartment. I tried to save like 70% of my income
Wow.
and my wife's income to just throw at
Yeah.
rentals at that period, just because I believe that, look, we're buying them for below the cost to
Yeah.
build. We can rent them for more than our debt's worth. And so that's really kind of how I got started in the
Yeah, I
process.
love that. I love that. And she was smart. She was like, put a ring on this finger, man. You are a smart guy, and we're
Well,
going to grow this empire together. And she's been with you,
well,
right? She's doing it.
yeah. Well, what's funny about that is, like, I always tell people, make sure that your spouse is on
Right.
board.
Yeah.
And if you can figure out a way to bring them along, it goes a lot well. And I'll tell you a quick story. One time we went to a property, and we call this internally the mama in the bed story, or the mama in the bed property, because we go see this house. It was something that was going to come on sale. The realtor said nobody's in the
Yeah.
house. We walk through it. I go to sit down on one of the beds in the bedroom, and people were still living there, but nobody was at the
Right.
house that day. I sit on the bed. Across the room, this lady screams, pops out of the bed, nearly scares
Oh my
she scares my wife and I to death. And it was like the mom. The mom was there in her little nightgown, sleeping in the bed. We're walking through the property.
Oh my gosh.
The things we get in real estate.
Right.
I'm just saying.
That's right. And so from now on, we call that property Mama in the Bed. That's the house that we own.
Did you buy that with the mama in place?
Yeah. No, Mama sadly had to go. Mama wasn't.
And you didn't have
Mama
to
couldn't stay.
do the whole eviction process. You just closed and they moved out.
That's exactly right. We had to do some work, but yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. So let me ask you, as you started, I mean, currently today, how many pieces of property do you own, if you don't mind sharing? And then how much have you had over the time that you started investing in real estate?
Yeah, we're at 14 properties right
That's
now. Those are all
fantastic.
single family.
Yeah.
We're at they're all single families now. Over the course of our career, we think we had about 18 at one
Yeah.
point, but we did accidental flips, as I like to call, because we just needed to get rid
Yeah.
of some of the assets.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we. So the question was, like, how many did we have at the peak, and how
Right.
many do we have now?
Yeah. So with the 14 properties that you currently own, do you manage those all by yourself, Arthur? Or do you have support in that area?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely don't manage them. So that I guess that was one of the lessons I learned early in the stage of the deal flow is I was driving all the way out to go get these houses fixed, and I was renting. I was all stressed out. I mean, once the end of the month would come, I'm like, is this the month I'm going to have to go and put an eviction notice and deal with scary, potentially scary people, or I mean, like, that's not my. And so after about a year of doing that myself, I just kind of looked at, like, what I got paid day to day, and I'm like, why am I? That's not the highest and best use of my time. Going out there pretending to be a property manager when, look, my wife will be the first to tell you I'm no handyman. We have a 30-minute rule in this house. If I can't fix it in 30 minutes, then we're calling in a specialist to do it. So
I think I've gotten a couple of those text messages. Hey, Lori, do you have a person for this?
Like, but it's hanging picture frames in a TV. You can't do that, Arthur.
No.
I can't. 30-minute rule. It's going to take too long for me to.
We all know our specialties. We all have them.
Yeah, but to answer your point, like, one of the things we learned is the first year out is, how do we scale? Like, I don't want another job.
Right.
I really want this to be as passive as possible. So we aligned with the property management company who could basically handle the day in and day out, basically collecting the rents, placing tenants, fixing and fielding calls for any repairs. And one of the things that we did that really helped us with that is we stabilized costs by saying, hey, look, if there's a repair that comes in that's less than $150, don't even pick it up to call me. Just, you got my auto approval on that. And so been working with the same team for about 10 years now. So it's been, I mean, that's what makes me say, hey, I spend less than 30 minutes on this, and we've been really lucky.
Yeah, I love that, because I think building the team of professionals to support you is what a lot of people tend to miss, and they think, oh, I'm going to do this all on my own. And then you realize, as you did at some point, like, I'm not doing this alone. Like, I need that support piece. It just makes for good sense. So I'm curious then, are all your properties in the same area, or are they out of the area? Where are they in relevance to you?
Yeah, so we are active investors in the Kern market. So we have our pretty much our whole portfolio in the Kern Valley, Bakersfield
Yeah.
area, and surrounding communities, and that's where we are. So we're about two, maybe now that I live out here, 2.5 hours
Yeah.
potentially from the nearest rental we own, and that was just out of a process of elimination. I think one of the things that people make the mistake of doing is they either become an accidental landlord, right? They sell their old home, or they go buy a new house and then they don't get rid of the other one, which I'm not saying they should,
Right.
but there's a difference between becoming an accidental landlord and anticipating that,
Right.
hey, I didn't realize I purposely didn't buy this house as a rental versus saying, hey, look, I want to buy a house or an apartment or whatever you're trying to do
Right.
with the understanding that these dollars have to earn a certain amount of ROI.
Yes.
And so that's how we started sale. We started buying properties up there, but like it's pretty hard to do that. There's ways to do it here in this area. You own several properties yourself, so you could speak to that too. But it's just you gotta be really strategic about the kind of product you buy, the price point, the neighborhoods,
Yes.
and so all those types of things.
Arthur, so I had a agent who spoke into my life and pushed me into action, just because he told me, and I think a lot of people do this, and they're like, oh, when you use the word ROI, or the acronym ROI, right? Return on investment. Like, people are like, oh, I want to make a ton of money on the property. So, I've got to find a great deal. And this gentleman shared with me, like, as long as I make like $20, I'm happy, because my time over time is where I'm going to make the return on my investment. And that helped me to move forward. What for you is return on investment? What does that look like specifically? What's your criteria?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I think, yeah, you got, and for everyone it's
Right.
different. I think that's a good point, right? Because there's a lot of categories when you think about the asset class of real estate. There's the component of, hedge against inflation. You actually have holding costs. What does the future appreciation projections look
Yeah.
like? Stability of the tenant, right? These are all factors that you kind of have to think
Yes.
through. But the down and dirty one for me is I have a number of costs that I built in, and I'm trying to target anything over about
Yeah.
15% cash on
Yeah.
cash, not cash on cash, 15% rate of return on my
Yes.
money. And so I'll factor in, okay, look, if you have a property for 10 years, how much of that mortgage are you going to pay down over 10
Yes.
years if you use a mortgage? What do we think the appreciation is going to be? Now, I don't bank on that factor, but if you factor in, 1% a year, it's pretty
Yeah.
safe. You'll probably be right around that, maybe
Right.
2%, or the last couple of years, it's nothing.
Yes.
But typically, in a normal market, but yeah, look, those are great windfalls
Yeah.
to have. But if you don't bank on that, you can buy a little below market. I always try to find stuff that is value add
Mhm.
potential. So an example would be, can we convert the garage into the third
Yeah.
bedroom? Is there a formal dining room we can convert into a small office, throw a closet in there and call that a third
Yeah.
bedroom? Can we add an AU, what is it
ADU.
called, a
Yeah.
ADU in the back from the garage that's detached, right? So we're looking for little ways to, and as you get more savvy, you can, or you can even subdivide the land and sell it off or whatever you want to
Mhm.
do. But yeah. So I always try to find that the number though, the return on investment is like, hey, look, if you think about if I'm a viewer today, I'm just like, what are you getting on your money in the bank today?
Yes.
Probably less than 2%, less than 1%,
Yes.
most
Yes.
likely. And so if you can find a deal where your cash is making you more than
Mhm.
that, well, then you're already in the positive, and then it's not overly complicated. It's not like stocks or
Right.
cryptocurrency where a tweet from an investor or a very eccentric CEO can change the value of the asset by 50%. It's like real estate, apart from the last 3 years, is typically very slow moving.
Yes.
So it's and if you're making cash flow and you're actually positive, um, and you have reserves, that's the other big thing.
Yes.
Like I don't see why people buy um, index funds and mutual funds, and they pay into that. They actually pay $300 or $1,000 a
Mhm.
month to actually own that. Whereas real estate, like if you just completely have the other perspective, hey, I just want to break even, or I want to make $200 a month positive cash flow. that's still way different and more positive in my opinion. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I went long in the tooth there, but hopefully that answers your
No, for
question.
sure it does because you've got a number that you want to hit. And so when you decide to invest in a property, you're looking for that number, which is about 15% of return on investment for someone. And that's great because then you know what your number is and you can make a determination like, yep, this fits my criteria or it doesn't. I work with other investors and they do that too as well. They're like, boop, 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 boop. And they're like, nope, that one's below my criteria of dollars coming back to me. And I'm like, darn, okay, let me go back to the drawing board and find another one, you know?
Well, it's one of the dirty secrets that the way we built our portfolio earlier, and it may not work in today's market, but it could maybe hopefully in the summertime as we see more inventory come back on the market is purchase a property that needs some work, right? If you're
Yeah.
just getting started, you
Yeah.
maybe can have a little more time. And then, you sit on it for a few months and then in a couple of months you could refinance, right? So you got to buy a little below market, but it's got to be a little bit
Yeah.
ugly, right? Stuff
Yes.
that's not turnkey. And then when you refinance, you pull out your down payment or most of it. And so that's how you can increase your return. So if you're going to spend, $50,000 on a down payment, but you can get 20 or 30 grand back in 6 months once you
Yeah.
refinance. Well, now you're measuring your return on the 20 grand that's still in the
Right.
deal. And that's how your numbers start to really get a little
Ooh, I
healthier
love
than
that.
like, yeah, you might,
I love how you put
mhm.
that,
Yeah,
because that's something that most people don't think about. And so I want to dive into that because you mentioned earlier that you didn't necessarily do it by yourself. You pulled together some investors that moved forward with you. How did you choose those people? Why did you decide to go into business with them? And are you still in business with them?
Yeah, no, it's a funny question, right? Like people were like, "Oh, wow, it makes me sound like I have this great syndication platform." Yeah, like I was like, I was like what is it, a pooh from Aladdin, right? I saw all these properties on the market, and my eyes were like, they saw the jewel in the cave. How do I get more? How do I get more? And so people, and I remember family members and friends being like, "You're going to lose all you're going," and I was like, "Well, even if I'm wrong, I'm 28. I probably could
You can
recover."
recover.
I'm not saying your listener should do that, but you're asking the
Right.
motivation, right? I was liquidating my
Yeah.
401k to do everything I
Yeah.
did, and so but we were no all these properties were cash flow
Yeah.
positive, and the prices were so depressed. We were buying stuff for in that market we're buying stuff for like 80
Right.
grand, 50,000,
Right.
right, for homes that were renting for
Right.
$1,100, just easy to stabilize. And so I was going through that, and then a family friend was like, "Hey, I don't want to invest in property. Like, I don't want to be dealing with tenants and all that stuff. But we have some capital that's sitting in the bank, and could you use it?" And so I said, "Well, look, I'll pay you 10% on your money. I will not do that now, obviously, but." But I just said, let me sit on the money for 2 years, and I'm going to hold on to this property, get it cash flowing, and then I'll refinance out and then pay you the
Yeah.
difference. And so I only had one investor that did that. I did think two or three
Mhm.
deals, and then yeah, I prefer to not. If I can do everything by
Yeah.
myself, I'll just do it that way. But if I wanted to go bigger,
Yeah.
that would be. If I wanted that to be my full time job, yeah, you could syndicate, get
Right.
bigger, more investors partnering with you.
I
Yeah.
love that he's like, oh, well, bigger than 14. I mean, 14, come on, 14
That's a
houses.
lot.
People are like, I just want to buy one.
Right?
And you have 14, man. So, 14 plus
Yeah.
your primary. So really you have more than that. you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're doing a fantastic job. I'm just saying. And I love
Yeah.
that you have, brought people in and shared in the experience, let them be part of the experience. You let them add to you and you added back to them, right? So that you could grow this opportunity. So, basically, that was how you've pulled together. I mean, over time, how have you pulled together? Because we all know, like, when you buy an investment property, you got to put so much money down. I mean, how did you do that over time? You know,
Yeah. Yeah. It starts to get expensive after you get a few
like
properties.
I'm like rebuilding right now. I'm like, Lori's tapped out. I'm rebuilding because we all know I just closed on one, like, maybe 120 days ago or so. So, I'm like, okay, I got to rebuild my cash again before I can make another investment. I mean, how often did you buy a
Hmm.
property or,
I mean, we're now going on like 13 years or
yeah,
so. So right, it's not like it was 2 years. Like I
boom.
read
I
those
love that.
stories and I'm like, I don't know, because I don't have a an investor pool behind me that's supporting our
Yes.
transactions. It's just like, me. So I would say there's, to give values to your viewers, I'll share three things that I think could really be useful for them.
Thank
Right.
you.
So one is, think about the idea of like, can you, and I would say like if you're younger, this maybe makes sense. Can you live in a place that's not in the city center? Can you go a little bit further out in the town that's maybe not the place you want to live permanently for 10 years, but could you live there for 2 years, right? Because you can get into those programs for as little as 5 to 3.5% down. And then start renting out the rooms, because that's what I did
Right.
when I first started. I rented out 2 of the bedrooms. Or can you get a duplex or a multifamily?
Yeah.
If it's below 4 units, it still qualifies. Live there for a few years, and then, live for very little, and then use that money and purchase another home, right? And so that's a way to kind of house hack, as they call it.
Yes.
So that's kind of one easy strategic motion they can think about, is not necessarily like, yes, you're not going to find a house in a, 10, like a really nice school district where they're going to have 4 properties and they're all going to make sense. Like, you got to have to go to an area where it's a little bit more probably blue collar, probably not terrible schools, but probably not the best schools, and maybe a multi-unit. So that's one way. Another way is, like I talked about before, is, right, buy an asset that you think you can add value to. Maybe the property's just been really, Lori, like the house that we purchased on Mauna Loa,
Yes.
right? It smelled like dog, and you did your best to make it look beautiful, but boy, that thing, I walked in and I smelled the money, right? It smelled like a lot of money, and money smelled a lot like dog pee and dog hair. So, so, so I'd say like that's another opportunity. We bought it because nobody wanted it, and it was kind of a weird looking property. And over the time, like we bought it below market. We added some value to it. We did some upgrades that mattered, not just visual upgrades, but we actually did things that increased the value. And then
True.
we ended up selling it, and we kept all the money, and that's how we bought this house here. But like we took a portion of that, right? We made like a good amount of money on that
You had a
transaction.
fantastic realtor that did that for you.
I would say a realtor team.
Yes,
but
team.
yes, you're right.
Yes, it was our team. It was.
Sell side and the buy side. Yep. So it came full circle because I bought that one
Yes.
originally from you. And you even sold some of my rentals,
Yes.
right? So the thing I'd say there is like we if you are going to upgrade into it, like, and this is a time you're probably talking to your clients, hey, we're going to upgrade into a better neighborhood. Well, with rates being so low, they make like 200,000-300,000 on their equity costs, right? Depending on where your listeners are, maybe save 100 of that, or maybe say half of it, and you can put that towards starting your portfolio. And the other idea being, can you refinance and pull the money out? And that's mostly how we did it, to be honest. We refinanced out. We waited a few years. We got equity built in. We refinanced, pulled our initial capital back out, maybe a little bit extra, and then we funded. The other thing is the market, right? Like if you're trying to buy in an $800,000 neighborhood, you're going to take a long time to scale. If you're buying $150,000 homes like I do, or $100,000 homes if you can find them, 20% down is not quite as hard to save for as a $800,000 20% down.
Correct.
So that, but I know a lot of folks that do that. They'll either live in the property, rent it out, or they'll buy it, like fix it up a bit, and then they refinance, pull the initial capital out, and then now that's their seed money to either do it again or to purchase a rental property.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, as we recap right now, right, we're just going to kind of go back over the things that you suggested, and then I would love for you to just to give our listeners just one point that would make best sense for them. Like, this is the next actionable step. If you've been thinking about it and you want to do this, what would it be? But could you just do a quick recap on what we discussed? You put together, you picked a property, you picked a neighborhood, you picked go ahead. I'll let you do it. I know you'll do it better.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, look, if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in maybe getting started in real estate, and look, I don't have a dog in the fight. You can do it or you don't do it. But what I would say is figure out what you're looking for. And I would probably look at real estate as an additional asset that you want to put in your portfolio. Don't try to have this idea that you're going to be able to retire yourself in 5 years. That just puts a lot of unneeded pressure. But just take an initial step. Look, where's a market that you think maybe you don't want to live in and raise your kids in, but there's a market where somebody's looking for a house that's in the area, that's got a little bit more of the price point that's going to make sense on paper for you to get a yield, and then align yourself with folks like Lori, and Amy to kind of think about what are some of those markets. And if you're in Southern California, there's a couple of markets that actually still make sense, even though prices are elevated, where you could buy, a fourplex or duplex, especially out, more towards the inland and desert areas or up in the Central Valley. And I know, Laura, you got a deep network in all those areas. And so I would say, start thinking about those items and then just trying to get educated on the asset class. Like you wouldn't plan a vacation and just throw a dart on the wall. You'd be doing a little bit of research, trying to understand how this is different than stocks, how it's different than, because everyone just looks at the top like, oh, when is real estate going to crash?
Like, that's going to be our next conversation. We'll have you back on.
Okay, sorry.
We're going to have you back on for that one because we didn't even get to touch it. And I know you have great insight into where you believe the real estate market is going, what's happening with it. And I know we'll have a fantastic dynamic conversation around that because you and I have it offline all the time. So what is the one thing that you would say, Arthur, go and this is it. Do this one thing if you're going to move forward in real estate. What would you say for someone who's never done it?
Wow, that's a good question. I'll throw in one and a part two to it. Right, the first would be just go talk to a lender and just get a sense of what you can qualify for, right? Yeah. And then the second piece is probably reach out to Lori and her team and just see, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And I know you have deep network of investors that you work with and experience yourself, and just take one step. Don't try to boil the ocean. Just do one thing. I would just talk to a lender, just see what tools are you working with.
I'm with you on that. Start with the lender, right? I mean, you can start with the realtor too, but the reality is you need to talk to a lender who actually knows how to and is potentially investing in real estate by themselves as well. And if you've had experiences with many lenders, and the last one you just worked with in our transaction was Justin Brown's team, and you were super happy with them, and he invests in real estate. So we can make that connection happen as well. Yeah. Arthur, you're so awesome. I mean, it's just an inspiration to know that like you do a day-to-day job, like you're just, doing your thing that you love and buying real estate, and you have people supporting you in that so that you can create this extra income so that you and your wife and your beautiful little guy, how old is he now?
4.5.
Yeah. How old was he, Aim, when we first, like, he was like still baby, right? I don't even think you had him yet.
Yeah,
no,
not when they bought Mauna
not
Loa,
when you bought. Oh, no.
Yeah.
I have to say this too. I remember when you bought your house with me on Mauna Loa, this always sticks out. And like, I was like, oh, I got to stay in touch with this guy. He's awesome. Because he was like, Lori, I'm driving in circles around my house with a mattress on the roof, waiting for you to call me and tell me I can pull in my driveway. So can I pull in my driveway yet?
Wow. And you still wanted to work with that
I
crazy
think
guy?
that's awesome. I was like, oh my gosh, he's got the best energy. And then I got to know you even more so. And I just loved all the real estate information that you carry because you follow the market very closely. You really do. It's something that you love and you're passionate about. And I want everyone to know he does not have a real estate license, nor do you really even want to get one. Right, Arthur? Not interested.
No, I mean,
and so many people think, oh, if I'm going to be an investor in real estate, I got to have a real estate license.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the highest and best use of your time, right? I do much better in my day job. I don't need to be trying to be a real estate agent. I got people who are working a lot harder at that than I would ever do. So that's good.
Not to say you wouldn't be an amazing one if you didn't choose to do it. Arthur, if people want to get in touch with you or want to reach out to you or have additional questions, where's the best place for them to do that?
I just started a YouTube page. It's called Arthur Invests. I don't really have much content on there, but I'll throw some stuff on there. But reach out to Lori. It should connect you to me. I'll throw some work on your side.
I don't mind. And where we post this, you guys can comment down below. You can do all of that great stuff. We'll get you connected. And we'll make sure that we are definitely going to have Arthur back on just because I want to talk about the market, where you foresee the market going as an investor in the real estate market as well. And all of the gurus you follow, because I know you follow a ton of them. Thank you. Thank you, Arthur, for being on. We really, really appreciate you. Aim, anything?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Arthur.